Psalm 107. They that go down to the sea in ships, that do business in great waters, these see the works of the Lord, and his wonders in the deep. Man has always gone down to the sea in ships, voyages for food, for exploring his world, for finding the wonders in the deep. And nothing that man found there has filled him with more wonder than the whale.
You got 10.
Through all time we have been linked with the sea, and now the whale is a symbol of mankind's failures and successes in managing the world's resources. A measure of the condition of the whale is a measure of the condition of the ocean, a measure of our own lives. Through all time we have been linked with the sea.
But we do leave our marks. And we leave our marks in the sense that we dump sewage into it, we dump radioactive materials in it, because it seems like the ultimate dump. You can't see it again, so you don't worry about it. And we can do to the ocean, presumably, the same kinds of bad things that we've done to parts of the land.
George Nichols is a doctor of medicine and an oceanographer.
If we look after the ocean properly, I think that it will continue to feed us as it has fed us. The whale may be a real useful symbol of the ability of the ocean to look after us.
But philosophically, our ability, the ability of human beings to destroy these large and benign creatures solely in the name of greed and avarice suggests that there is something perverse, something quite wrong with our own approach to the planet.
Richard Ellis is one of the world's leading students of the whale.
If we persist in destroying animals that ask nothing more than to be left alone, to reproduce and to feed in peace and in quiet in the vast expanses of the oceans, if we feel that it's necessary to cruise those vast oceans and slaughter them, then I think we're in a lot of trouble.
For a long time, the whale was exploited, in some cases almost to extinction. But now the forces for protection are beginning to carry the day. Many organizations around the world, particularly in the United States, are working to safeguard the ocean environment and to preserve the whales. This ship, the Regina Maris, is on its way to Greenland for research on the life of the whale. The boat is owned by the Ocean Research and Education Society. Even before they left the waters near their base in Gloucester, Massachusetts, they began to see gangs of whales in the distance. They began to hear the sound of whales surfacing for air.
Oh, there!
That's a fin.
The Society teaches college students in 12-week courses that involve trips to whale grounds from the Caribbean to the northern seas.
Look what we caught.
Did it hit the bow?
Yeah. Oh, look at this, Judy.
The students participate in important research, which is pooled with other scientific groups studying whales.
That speckled color guy. What is he?
We were dragging the bottom out.
In other words, this is dead serious. This is not
dead
make
serious.
work.
Absolutely, no funny business about it. And if you ask me what the first priority of this organization is, it's to do good science. And the second priority is to teach that material and to teach people how to do good science at sea.
Dr. George Nichols is the master of the Regina Maris and the president of the Ocean Research and Education Society.
If you take an environment like the ocean and exploit it without any kinds of controls, without any thought about what the future may hold, eventually those resources are going to be depleted to disappearance. But if you do it with the development or the utilization of those resources with some kind of thought pattern some kind of knowledge of what it takes to maintain those resources, then the chances are those resources will be around for your grandchildren and great-grandchildren.
Last Sunday, the Regina Mara sailed all night to the Stellwagen Bank, 12 miles off the coast of Massachusetts. In the morning, there were whales all around.
They're everywhere. Gonna float, starboard. All black.
Completely black flukes there.
White
Just a little
tips.
bit of the tips are white.
There's a bubble over here.
After 6 weeks of work in the classroom on shore, the students were delighted, finally, to be at sea with live whales.
Those coming up. You got 10.
Well, I believe if they didn't want us to see them, we wouldn't. When I saw them today, the first thing I thought was how great it would be to be in the water with them. So,
He's not snoozing.
Fluke! Fluke!
Good Lord. Good show.
It was the first time I'd really seen them because I haven't been on any of the whale watches, and I just thought it was great looking around. They were everywhere, and it was I thought it was fantastic.
They were busy with feeding, but they took the time off to look at us, and you could see their eyes, and they were just sitting there in the water. It was just amazing to be so close and to see how big they are and just how beautiful.
Yeah, there's a bubble. Oh. And these whales they're just compelling. You want to know why they're there, what they're doing, how they feed, how they reproduce, what their life patterns are, what their various behaviors mean. We have no idea of all those things. You want to go back with them?
The whale has always had a kind of magical fascination for us, giving us symbols for religion, literature, and art. The whale reminds us of ourselves. Scientists say that in many things, mental capacity, care for its young, group life, sophisticated communications, the whale reminds us of ourselves. We see the humpback and the fin whale here in the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Massachusetts. And we see the gray whale here in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of California.
And you can figure that the whale sort of rule of thumb weighs a ton a foot. So that's a lot of whale, a lot of animal. Yet these animals can maneuver, they can turn corners more sharply than we can in this ship. They dive and they swim and they exist in this very foreign environment, which is the ocean, foreign to us as land animals. And I think we're fascinated by that as a people. We like big things.
And probably the single thing that intrigues me more than any other is how little we know about them. And that ignorance seems to me to be as good a reason as any to not kill them and eat them.
Marine expert Richard Ellis is the foremost painter of whales in the world. He is working here in his studio in New York. He has been tracking whales around the world for years.
So here are these animals that have been hunted for centuries, and so far all we know about them is how to kill them, how to peel the blubber off, and occasionally how to carve the teeth into scrimshaw. But they are the most mysterious and probably, to me, the most fascinating animals on Earth, and it represents an ecological crime of the highest order to be so totally ignorant of an animal and still go out and kill it for margarine or lubricating oil.
On the ocean, we only see the whale for fleeting moments. Then it is gone. Ellis allows us a different experience. To see the animal in the round. to contemplate the form. Tall masts help lookouts find whales. Sails keep the boat steady for research in heavy weather. The wood hull makes a minimum of noise that might frighten whales away. For this voyage, an old ship is better than a new one.
If you want to count how many whales there are, and the ship is going in a straight line, you can distinguish groups of whales by their relative bearing. Those whales there are 45.
For most nations of the world, the killing of the whale has now given way to the counting of the whale.
What type of feeding behavior do the finbacks have?
The International Whaling Commission has approved a 5-year moratorium on all commercial whaling. The ban is to go into effect at the end of 1985. Only a handful of nations dissented, mainly Russia and Japan.
The large number of factory ships that used to hunt the whale around the world is reduced now to just 2, one Japanese and one Russian. And there is considerably less hunting by other means. In 1972, the United States passed a law to end all whaling in American waters. The International Whaling Commission will begin its annual meeting next week in England. Richard Ellis is a member of the American delegation, and he hopes that a compromise can be reached that will bring all nations into the agreement.
I suspect that even if this kind of compromise is not reached, the whaling industry, the commercial whaling industry itself, will grind to a halt because it is so totally uneconomical and, incidentally, worldwide unpopular.
Come to starboard a little bit.
The whale is a symbol of mankind's failures and successes in managing the world's resources. A measure of the condition of the whale is a measure of the condition of the ocean, a measure of our own lives.
Come to starboard a little bit.
Through all time, we have been linked with the sea. Dr. George Nichols.
We can say that this ocean is the mother of life, and there's some evidence that that is correct. But in a very practical sense, in the everyday sense, if we don't make efforts to protect this environment that we're floating on now and sailing over and enjoying, then we stand serious risk of destroying for later generations the thing that may allow them to not starve to death. It's pretty important.
Richard Ellis.
The idea should be, it seems to me, to be able to appreciate all the creatures that share this planet with us for their own attributes. Obviously, we are interconnected with them. Nothing lives in an isolated sense. The bell tolls for whales as well as human beings.
flag level. And, old man, just look at that flag. It's solid enough to walk on. Navigator to pilot approaching the IP.
You guys fed well. Yeah, right, we did. We had the best job.
It was all so different the first time they came to England. They were young. The world was at war.
You remember McCrory? Yeah, old Mac, yeah. I've seen him once since the war. That's the only time I've seen him, yeah.
And I spoke with a boy I hadn't seen in 40 years, Phoenix Hudson, one of the cooks. Yeah. I took a trip down to Arkansas before I came here for 10 days. I saw two buddies. LaRue, he's got a little emphysema. LaRue, he's got emphysema. He's retired. He's okay. And then I saw Phoenix Hudson, but he's got a bad hip.
40 years ago, they were pilots and gunners and navigators with the 306 Bomb Group, the first Americans to drop bombs on Nazi Germany. For the first time since the war, they're having a reunion in England to remember and to rediscover.
He's a good friend of Wendell Hull's, too, you know. And Gordon is the one told me Wendell died.
Wendell died. We had a letter the other day. Wendell died of a heart attack last month.
And Archie Evans died. Archie Evans died. He was a little guy that climbed into the wings of the airplane. He was the only guy that could work inside the wing of the airplane.
Connie Richards was little more than a child when these men flew from a base near her English village. But she knows how daring they were. She organized their return to England for the unveiling of a memorial to their deeds and to their dead.
Oh, Connie, come on. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Bless your heart.
Anyway, have a great time and lovely to see you.
Really?
Nice to see you anyway. Sorry about this.
Miss Marguerite. Miss Marguerite, how are you? My goodness. Oh, Miss Marguerite.
Come on. George has come. Yeah. Oh, that's taken in there.
The British and the Americans helped each other through the war. Hollis Baker remembers how hard it was to find fresh eggs.
Yes, that is correct.
Marjorie Payne used to sell them to him. And in the superstitions born of war, she may have helped him survive.
People that, like me, you see, that came out and got eggs. We'd come and get eggs from her, and no one that ever bought eggs from Marjorie and Fred Payne failed to go home. We all completed our missions.
Yes, well, then none of them died, you know, got killed or didn't come back. It was always a laugh and said, if you know the Paynes, you'll go home.
I don't think any of us that survived worried about it. I really don't believe any of us that survived worried very much.
You were a little bit scared, weren't you,
Yeah.
at the last mission?
No, not a little bit scared. We were a hell of a lot scared
Well, I
on
didn't-
every mission.
Yes,
But
but
we
the
did it.
last one was the worst.
The last one was the worst one, because you weren't quite sure. We lost an awful lot of people on our last mission.
Yes, yeah.
Whether you survived it or not, it was the roughest because you anticipated it in. And there was a lot of problems, you know. We had a pretty terrific loss rate, but I guess it was the you might say the fear took a quantum jump the closer you got to the end, because it would be what a shame if you fly 29 missions and then get shot down on the 30th. That would be a hell of a mess. And that's why it was,
Yeah.
that was why it was,
There we are. Well, that's that.
At their old base, the memorial to the 306 bomb group was ready for unveiling. This is where they flew on missions great and dangerous. The memories flooded back.
That's the squadron insignia that my wife knitted that one time.
It's called the Grim Reaper.
No, it isn't. That's the clay pigeon.
Oh, I beg your pardon. It's the clay pigeon.
I was the luckiest guy in the most unluckiest outfit, I guess. We lost more airplanes than anybody.
We found out not too long ago, which shook us up a little, that our original unit that came over to England, there were 39 crews. And we found out recently there were only 3 crews that survived out of the original group of 39, and we were one of the 3 crews. That's when it shakes you up a little bit. The odds were pretty much against it those days.
Yeah, I did.
The hunter becomes the hunted.
After you
I know exactly what you're thinking about. What? Sure he's all right. Sure he's all right.
Some 40 years have passed, but their deeds of heroism are not forgotten. I send my greetings and sincere good wishes to all who are assembled today for the unveiling and dedication ceremony. Elizabeth R., the Queen Mother.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present you with the 306 Memorial.
They were boys of 21 or so when they arrived here 40 years ago. Their routine was to fly daylight precision bombing raids on strategic German targets, and then to survive to get back to England. The men of the 306 flew B-17s, flying fortresses they were called, battleships of the air. They often were attacked by fighters and anti-aircraft guns, and still they kept on flying. But they were far from indestructible. Flyers often watched planes go down all around them. This is from a diary one of them kept. 11:12 a.m., B-17 in spin under fighter attack. No shoot seen. 11:33, B-17 blew up. No shoots. 11:38, B-17 went straight down on fire. 1 shoot seen. In an hour and a half, he saw 12 bombers shot down. 120 men killed or taken prisoner.
3, 4, 5.
Saul Kupferman used to carry 2 sets of dog tags. Only one set identified him as Jewish. He was willing to pretend he was something else if captured by the Germans. He was 22 then, the radio operator on a B-17 called Paper Doll. Ken Norris was the ball turret gunner. Phil Lanyon, the navigator. Saul and Ken were more or less adopted by an English family. Don Nickel, his wife Dot, who is dead now, their daughter Cindy. She was 7 then.
We sweated them through their missions. We was always wondering whether they'd turn up about, and especially when we used to see the traffic, you know, going over our heads or hear it, we were wondering whether they were up there or whether it was their turn to be at base. So it was a case of sweating them through their missions.
This was right after the Schweinfurt raid, and they said, well, you go into the barracks up there and put your clothes in any bunk that you want. So I went into the barracks and I said, hey, there's clothes on all these beds. And he said, well, just pick out the one you want. We'll pick them up later on. So these were the clothes that belonged to the men that had been shot down on the mission.
Yeah.
Well, I was reported missing in action for 3 days, according to the fellows
So when I come back, my blouse was gone, my shoes were gone, my shirts were gone. So I had to go around and I want my shoes, I want this, I want that, that's mine. So, and anytime anybody was missing, if you could wear anybody's clothes, they just took them, that's all.
People say, well, you shouldn't, I think you said, or somebody said about youngsters say, well, you shouldn't keep remembering it, and, you know, this is silly, all this nostalgia, but it isn't, is it? If you can appreciate the good can come from it, that it's over, the war has finished, but the friendship's still there. Yeah.
Thurleigh is the little English village they once called home. In an 800-year-old church, it's easy to see that 40 years is not a long time at all. In the life of a man, however, it's the difference between vigorous and daring youth and cautious age.
Grant to those who have gone before us that they may rest in the sleep of peace. Finally, we pray for ourselves as we prepare for our own time of death. Then, Lord, in your mercy, grant us safe lodging, a holy rest, and peace at the last.
At the cemetery for American servicemen nearby, they remembered friends whose deaths were tragically premature. And they wondered how life caught up with them so quickly.
Day 69.
Yeah. Bill McCoon. I guess they don't have dates. It's hard to determine.
There's another 306 over here. Oh.
There's
Arizona
Harris. Arizona Harris, right there. See the 306? And which one did you go to school with?
Bob Harbeck.
Harbeck.
I got a letter from him. It says, I'm waiting to see over here that you're flying big birds. He's firefighters.
Harris had his guns booming when he went down.
When he went down.
The bull, went
Yeah,
down in
I
the water.
understand. He went down with his gun shooting.
Here in Montana, more buffalo are roaming these days. The deer and the antelope still play, or at least loiter. And they're not the only ones. The cowboys still play too. Indians dance. And if you look closely at the perpetual postcard that is Montana, you even see a few teepees. More than a few, actually. And more new teepee starts every day.
We started out with just a little homemade brochure. The teepees sold themselves.
Don Ellis, a cowboy, not Indian, makes the teepees. and business is booming.
It's just kind of snowballed, just like a snowball.
So when you drive along around in this area of Montana, how many teepees do you suppose you have out in this region?
Oh, I would guess 300-400.
300 or 400. So it's becoming a popular item then.
Yes, they are.
Customers from far and wide now telephone his little company, White Buffalo Lodges in Livingston, Montana, to place their orders. Used to be our interest in the Native American culture didn't extend much beyond rubber tom-toms and beaded belts. But these days, people are snapping up all things Indian, and they prefer them a little more authentic than those made by the Hong Kong tribe.
This is operational. You can shoot this.
You name it, they want it. From jewelry and clothing to CDs and
teepees.
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 You do sell teepees.
We do sell teepees.
Have you sold any teepees yet?
We've sold 4 teepees already.
You have?
Yes.
In how many weeks?
In 4 weeks.
Wow,
Yeah.
one a week.
One a week. It's doing good, yeah.
In nearby Bozeman, Don's teepees are selling like hotcakes.
This is
a
a
short
forest
stack
apple.
anyway, according to
Yes,
Walt
this is-
Eisenstein, owner of the Wolf Creek Trading Company. But they're actually becoming somewhat trendy, right?
They are, they are. Jane Fonda's purchased one for Ted Turner for his birthday.
And how much do they cost?
This teepee right here in the 12-foot size is about $700.
And they come in different styles, is that right?
Well, they come in 2 different styles, basically. The Sioux teepee, which is a conical-shaped teepee like you see here.
Mm-hmm.
And then it comes in the round style, which most of the other Indian tribes like the Crow and Blackfeet used.
Don's teepees are now featured in upscale decorating magazines, lavishly furnished. Don, are you a Vogue kind of guy? I mean,
I'm just a Montana country boy.
Teepees are becoming trendy far beyond the Wild West. Are you the first in your neighborhood to have one, or have you seen any others?
I have a feeling we're probably the first in Greenwich at least to have such a thing.
Stuart and Alicia Orick don't live in the Wild West. They live in the western part of Greenwich, Connecticut.
I thought that there might be some objection to the teepee, but everybody has really liked it, and people came over right away to look at it and suggested a teepee party right away.
It's a very friendly and, for lack of a better word, mellowing atmosphere. It's a wonderful place to have conversations and just to relax.
No telephone, you feel like you're a million miles away. It's just, it's great. It's very, very special.
How good are Don Ellis's teepees? Ask the Native American who owns one. DeWanda Little Coyote Backbone, a Cheyenne.
We feel that Don Ellis has, in his heart, knows that respects us, and we respect him for making the teepees. And we own 3 in our family. Well, 4, 1 in the museum. So.
Yes, Don Ellis sells his teepees to the Indians.
Yeah, I think it's a good sign,
Leonard Elkshoulder.
The white people share their design of living with us, like the houses and stuff. So why shouldn't we share back, the cultural exchange, which is good.
So you've got a whole, it looks like a little world in here, actually, right? I mean, it's not just teepees, is it?
It's my own little world in town, but in the country.
Don's yard is his showroom and something of a museum of the Old West. Was that a heater, a pipe, or is it good cooking in there, or what?
It's a regular sheep herder's stove or camp stove. Has a little oven in it, and
a river runs through it.
Even has trout in it.
You have trout in there?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yes.
You can just kind of throw a line off your patio?
Well, I've never fished it.
No.
I'd rather just watch them.
Don Ellis makes house calls, teepee calls.
They had some high winds in here, and so we come up to correct it.
So in addition to selling them, you do service and maintenance?
everything.
A full-service teepee dealer.
Well, I'll go around and start pulling the cover off. Okay.
And how high up are we here?
Well, I would guess about 4,500 feet. It's a view of the Paradise Valley looking towards Yellowstone Park.
Being a teepee salesman takes you to a little nicer place, right?
Yes, it does. Just a little more beauty of Montana.
Where door-to-door salesmen have dogs to worry about, the teepee salesman has his own concerns.
We drove into it's a big ranch, and it's a buffalo ranch. They run approximately 3,000 head of buffalo. We drove up on a knoll, and we heard a roar, and we looked across the creek, and here come a herd of buffalo, about 1,200 head, on the dead run. And what a thrill.
It's all in a day's work for a full-service teepee salesman at a time when what everybody wants is a teepee with a view.
I hereby declare on oath that I absolutely and entirely renounce and abjure
In New York, another 100 immigrants are becoming citizens of the United States.
that I will support and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States of America.
Roughly 1 million new immigrants arrive each year, taking the first step towards becoming citizens. In just the last few months, thousands more have risked everything to reach what they regard as the promised land. From Haiti, from China, from across the porous border with Mexico, a desperate tide of dispossessed is arriving on our shores. How many come in illegally each year? There are no firm numbers, but estimates range all the way from 300,000 to more than 1 million. The inscription on Miss Liberty invites, "You're tired, you're poor, you're huddled masses yearning to breathe free." But today that ideal seems in jeopardy. A new CBS News New York Times poll shows that a record 61% of Americans believe that this country admits too many immigrants. Some want to call a halt altogether.
Okay, bye-bye. We are in fact at the headstream of a mighty torrent of migration, a mighty river of migration, which unless we declare a moratorium on immigration, restructure the laws, get our entry controls up to modern standards, will simply overtake this nation.
Dan Stein and his Federation for American Immigration Reform believe that traditional American notions about immigration are out of date.
Right now, there's 3.5 million people waiting in line, like a number at the deli. They're waiting in line to get their green cards. That's the size of the entire city of Chicago, larger than the entire state of Arkansas. No matter how bad the economy gets, no matter how few jobs the American economy has created, it's just like the ever-ready rabbit. They just keep coming.
Public frustration over immigration has spread across the country. Here in Orange County, California, just north of the Mexican border, a county investigating panel has released this report, which concludes that its social services are completely overwhelmed by the new arrivals. Their proposed solution, a 3-year nationwide moratorium on all immigration.
Ahorita tiene dinero en su bolsa.
The report ascribes all the county's ills, from welfare to traffic congestion to sewage backups, to the influx of new immigrants.
Ví dụ như cái câu hỏi này đó, họ hỏi ông có tài.
It estimates that immigrants cost Orange County $200 million a year.
¿Qué es su nombre, señor?
The state is going broke, and I think a lot can be attributed to the fact that we have so many illegal aliens in California and in Orange County especially.
Tom Dalton is one of the authors of the report.
We've tried to give a truthful report, and well, maybe it is negative, and maybe it has to be. Somewhere along the line, you're going to have to wake up Americans that these things are happening.
In Orange County communities like Santa Ana, where 80% of the population today is Mexican and Vietnamese immigrants, the report produced a furor. Journalist Lee Kim Ding.
They recommended a 3-year moratorium on all immigration. And that is something unthinkable. I mean, this nation is built by immigrants. This nation has become a world power because of the immigrants.
Personally, I consider an insult to the Hispanic community as a whole. You know, whether we like it or not, we are all immigrants or sons or daughters of immigrants, so it's a slap on the face to...
Jose Vargas is a Santa Ana police officer today. But when he first came to this country, he was turned back at the Mexican border a dozen times.
I came to the border guard and he said, no, you are not going to my gate here. So I did what millions of people have done, you know. I entered the United States without permission.
Illegally?
Illegally, yes. Yo soy Jose Vargas.
Vargas studied at night for 8 years to learn English, become a citizen, and join the police. He concedes that illegal aliens are a problem, but questions whether they can be stopped.
How are they going to stop the thousands of people that are going to be arriving at the border hungry, and their only hope is to come to the United States so they can eat?
It is illegal immigration that is on the rise and is fueling public resentment. The problem is not just on the Mexican border. Here at New York's John F. Kennedy Airport, agents stop 15,000 aliens a year. Many, like this young Chinese woman, arrive with no documentation and immediately request political asylum.
It's not like they're trying to avoid apprehension. They know they're going to be intercepted at the airport, and they also recognize that we're not going to be able to hold them.
William Slattery is the New York Regional Director for the Immigration and Naturalization Service. Due to limited jail space, he can only hold 400 detainees at a time.
We have detention capability to deal with about 4 to 5% of our traffic. The rest of the aliens are scheduled future appointments with immigration judges, and better than half never show.
She's undocumented, no documents? Negative. No, you know what flight she's off?
After a brief interrogation and fingerprinting, this woman, who admitted she had paid Chinese smugglers $30,000 to get into the country, walked away free.
Under the pressures that we face today, we can't afford to lose control of our own borders.
It is this kind of mockery of the immigration laws that has the public upset and the Clinton administration and Congress galvanized. There are currently 30 bills in the House to tighten immigration regulations, including proposals to authorize immigration inspectors to reject asylum claims on the spot.
How many days would you like to stay, sir?
About 13 days.
13 days?
I think that we have to protect the right of asylum.
Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi, whose district includes San Francisco's Chinatown, is concerned that anti-immigrant hysteria will produce bad law.
And I think a summary judgment at the border by a overworked, harassed border inspector, guard, or officer is really not honoring a commitment to democracy and to freedom.
One such case is William Ochan, a 28-year-old Sudanese Christian who fled after being tortured by the militant Islamic government in the midst of an ongoing civil war that has produced mass starvation. Despite his experiences, his request for asylum has been turned down. His appeal will be heard next month. Just in your own words, basically what you will tell the judge as to what's going to happen to you if they send you back to the Sudan.
I will just straight away tell her that that will mark the end of my life in the first place.
That you'll be killed.
Yes.
The backlog in asylum applications has kept Ochan waiting 5 years for an answer. During that time, he has earned a college degree, gotten a job as an engineer, and volunteered in a voter registration project.
I identify myself with the American people who, for one reason or another, came to this country because of the same freedom which I search.
Oh, sure. There are immigrants out there who are model citizens.
Dan Stein.
Immigrants today are setting up organized crime rings, credit card fraud, computer theft. Sure, Albert Einstein was an immigrant. That doesn't mean that all immigrants are Albert Einstein.
The furor over immigration policy is unlikely to die down soon, in part because the sheer number of people seeking admission, both legally and illegally, continues to rise. The dilemma is how to stop illegal immigration without trampling on fundamental rights. Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi.
The saddest result of all would be as if in our country we had stirred up an anti-immigrant attitude geared toward illegal immigrants, but which was applied to all people in our country who look different or speak with an accent, who are here legally. That would undermine what America is.
Right? Right. Okay, thank you. Goodbye. Nice lady. She's calling from New York. She wants to send me some information, but she says she has to have an address. What she doesn't understand is that out here we don't have addresses because we don't need addresses. Out here, we all know each other. Lyle the postman knows me. I call him Lyle. He calls me Raj.
Hey there, Tom.
Hi, Roger.
How you doing?
Tom, our UPS man, knows the names of our dogs. Tom doesn't need addresses. Do you know, by any chance, where Dan Leo's live?
Sure. You go across the bridge here, go east about 3 miles, turn north, go 2 miles west, back to the 2 miles north.
Sometimes we tell folks how to find us by calculating how far we live from the river or from town. Or we tell them our zip code, 68831. As a matter of fact, our farm has its own 4-digit zip code. So if you address your envelope, Roger, 68831, 9579, Lyle will get your letter to me. The situation isn't much different up in town. The two places people are most likely to stop for directions when they come to town are Mel's Filling Station and Eric's Tavern.
You've got 6 people explaining to this guy how you go left to where the white horse is always standing in the corner, and then you go to that oak tree, and then you got the other guy that says, no, you can't get there that way, you got to go south of town. And that,
or where the oak tree used to be.
Used to be, yeah. I remember where that barn stood for years, you know, before it burnt down. That's
Mel, I suspect that if somebody comes into this town looking for 633 Oak Street, you're the guy they come to. What do you tell them?
I have no idea.
How long have you lived here?
All my life.
Well, how come you don't know where 633 Oak Street is?
We just recently got the numbers and names. We don't go by those.
A few years ago, some wise guy in the Postal Service, probably a city boy, decided that everyone needs an address in Dannebrog. Maybe so, but nobody uses them today anyway. Addresses don't mean a thing when everyone knows where everyone else lives. This is a modern map of Dannebrog, almost unchanged from the way it was set up 110 years ago. 19 streets in all. And yet still it reflects the kind of problems the pioneer forefathers had. For example, Main Street is no longer Main Street. It's now Maple Street. Mill Street is our main street. As a result, delivery folks out here don't need addresses on letters and packages. In fact, if we want to know where somebody lives, we ask them. And they don't give us addresses either. They tell us where somebody lives.
Well, who are you looking for? Well, I'm looking for a guy by the name of Jack Davis. Oh, you go 2 blocks up there, take a right, and it's the second house on the left-hand side. You know, street address. I don't even know my own.
So what would you do if someone came in here and said, well, where does Dave Ratliff live?
Oh, that's easy. Just go to the corner here and a block south and the first house on your left.
That lady from New York, she said she absolutely had to have an address. So I gave her one. I learned long ago that people out here in the middle of nowhere develop strategies for dealing with city-based problems. So when there absolutely has to be an address, they make one up. And that's what I did. I told her she could send her package to Roger Welsch, 192nd and Y Street, Loading Dock M, Suite 224B, Department Triple E, Dannebrog, Nebraska, 68831-9759. She was happy, figuring that an address that complicated has to be good, and Lyle, he'll get the package to me.
So this is what? A little bit of the archives, not the whole thing?
No, this is a little fraction of what I have in my archives, you know.
Over 30
yes,
years.
Over 30 years, yes. So imagine, I have 10,000 pair of shoes, at least.
That's 10,000 pairs he's kept, a tiny fraction of the millions he's sold. Shoes with names like Frasca and Samia. You actually name your shoes?
We always do so the pages of a novel. The last issue of the National Geographic, I go, there's going to be Arabian, there's going to be Swedish, there's going to be something, and we name the villages of the towns. So it's easy as hell.
His name has become synonymous with high fashion. And at 60, Manolo Blahnik is known as one of the greatest shoe designers of all time, with an elite following. Princess Diana got interested in your shoes. She would come into your shop.
I never talked about my customers, but I was fortunate to have served such other women, yes.
Madonna has said that your shoes are better than sex and they last longer.
God bless her, really. I mean, you know, that is not her point of view. Yes, possibly, it's true. If she says so, she must know.
And it is those famous clients who created the cult of Manolo.
Manolo!
Sarah Jessica Parker has made Manolos the must-wear accessory, both in private life and on her TV series, Sex and the City.
Do you think they make the right statement?
Well, what statement do you want them to make?
I am beautiful and powerful, and I don't care that you're only 25 and married my ex.
Sex and the City has helped spur Manolo mania. When Blahnik's Manhattan boutique runs its half-price sale, women line up down the block. But his fans may be surprised to know where their icon first tried his hand at shoemaking. Right on the banana plantation his family owned in the Canary Islands off the coast of Africa. I have read that as a little boy you used to actually capture lizards on the property and make little clothes and shoes for them. Is that true?
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. I used to do little things, little boots and things on the lizards on my poor dog. It used to be a victim number one. It used to be the most best dressed dog in the world, actually.
But it took Blahnik a while to get back to shoe biz. After a brief stint in law school in Geneva, he dropped out, ended up in London, where he became a well-known man about town, hobnobbing with the rich and famous. He dabbled in set design for theater, but finally, in 1971, he decided to try shoe design. Your very first shoe collection, though, didn't work out so well?
No, it was bad. It was terrible, in fact.
Terrible because the shoes, with their rubber soles, wobbled. He didn't really understand the craft of shoemaking. So Manolo Blahnik studied with English masters and combined his new technical know-how with imaginative design that delighted fashion insiders. From the very beginning, what was your concept of what shoes could be, should be?
You know, this is a tough question because you see, for me, shoes should be a decoration for, I mean, entertainment for you. Shoes are a very selfish thing to do because it's just for you to make yourself decorated, funny, whatever, feel good.
Who comes to this store?
Anybody comes here who wants to have a glamorous Manolo Blahnik foot.
We met up with Andre Leon Talley, editor-at-large of Vogue magazine, inside the Blahnik boutique, where full-price shoes start at about $500 a pair and can run into the thousands.
These do seem pricey to
Oh,
the
fancy
average
prices.
person.
I think that the prices are totally correct to what you're getting. They're made in the best factories in Europe. These are handmade, hand-finished shoes. The details are always finished by hand. And they are extraordinary works of art for the woman's feet.
Shoes have suddenly kind of become something that women lust for, they talk about. What's the deal?
It's like the men who lust for the Lamborghini or the Porsche. Women collect these shoes the way men collect, you know, that garage of fancy cars. The shoes are fancy, the price is fancy, but what you're getting is you're joining a special club. I mean, are those Manolos?
A club with plenty of members.
How many pairs of Manolos do you have?
Over a couple dozen. I probably have about 20 or 25 pairs.
I have 4 closet doors lined with nothing but Manolos.
How many pairs of Manolos do you have?
Close to 100. Without the boots. My husband actually built a closet around my Manolo Blahnik collection.
She isn't kidding. At home in Sparta, New Jersey, Janet Berardi has created a veritable shoe shrine.
My relationship with my Manolo Blahniks is sacred. To me, these are just absolutely gorgeous evening shoes. They're actually, as high as they are, they're very comfortable. Simple, simple shoe, but they're absolutely gorgeous. The best boots that I've ever seen in Blahnik's shop were these beaded boots. Everything about them, every little flower is embroidered. Whenever you put his shoes on, there's like this wow that comes into the room. And, you know, he just has it.
Which is music to Manolo's ears. He really believes that shoes can transform a woman.
That was the idea, always been my main thing. Somebody who wants to be somebody else. Oh, I want to be like this, maybe, or I want to be like me, and this is me, or whatever it is. It's always a way of express yourself.
Express yourself in 4-inch heels?
Do you care whether they're comfortable or not? Does that matter to you?
The most important thing, they gotta be absolute like gloves, otherwise what is the point? Are you comfortable with yours?
I'm surprised to tell you that I am.
Good.
Okay, I admit it. I splurged on a pair of Manolos, on sale of course, just for this interview.
They're my very first pair of your shoes.
I hope it's not gonna be last. But I tell you, a long life, long life. Okay, Rita, let's go. I'm gonna be high. And you like it, those little pearls, don't you? Those things.
Yes.
Okay.
But I really can't wait to try on the pair he drew for me. When you are with him, you begin to realize why Manolo Blahnik has lasted so long in the fickle field of fashion.
This is called the porches.
He can't stop creating, can't stop coming up with new ideas, even after 30 years.
In years to come, where do you think he will be in the pages of fashion history?
Well, Manolo Blahnik is already up there on Mount Olympus with the greatest designers of our lifetime. We have him on the same level as Coco Chanel, Christian Dior, Calvin Klein, Ralph Lauren, any great designer who's had a point of view that takes their career through decades and decades.
You are 60 years old.
Indeed.
You are considered so totally cool now. How long do you see yourself doing this?
You know something? As long the day that's starting to repeat myself, or to have, you know, block, like the writers are blockage, the painters are blockage of inspiration, I think I would say, well, it's about time to go. No, I still have, I'm curious. I'm a curious person, so it's not going to be like now.
It's going to be a long time, a long
few years
time.
more, few years more. Maybe 70 is the ideal time to get out. Possibly.
And meanwhile, legions of women around the world are standing by their man and in their Manolos.
As a mood-altering drug, there is nothing like a porch. Until I was assigned to do this story, I thought of a porch as something that just was, a place where the metabolism slowed down. I had no idea how much more there was to porches.
Well, the porch is great visual shorthand for home, for all the domestic virtues, for America.
Renovating the porch on his Washington, D.C. bungalow convinced Michael Dolan to write a book about porches.
It's also a great place for encounters, for departures, for confrontations.
Which explains why politicians seem to like them. The first political commercial was shot in 1896, William McKinley on his porch. Besides chairs and swings, there are, I now know, all kinds of other things you can put on porches. Especially on porches in the South, which seems to be the center of the porch universe.
Here's what a porch was when I was growing up. It was the only thing that kept you alive from the heat in the South. And everybody sat on a porch before the invention of air conditioning.
Writers Pat Conroy and Ann Rivers Siddons have been friends for years. They've sat on many a porch together.
Oh, a porch is a transition place between living and talking about living, I think.
Siddons comes from 6 generations of porches.
There's just story hovering in the air over those porches, and the minute anybody came out, it just dove on you like a mosquito. So it's a storytelling place to me.
Conroy wrote his first book, The Water is Wide, on a porch. Siddons has set her next book on one.
It's where I would tell the secrets.
Yeah, that's good.
I'd have the secrets told there.
It was slavery that brought us the porch as we know it.
It's where Africans lived that you find these porches in the New World.
Jay Edwards teaches anthropology at Louisiana State University, but you could also call him a porch historian.
When the Africans came, the first thing that they were told to do in the 17th century was to go and build your own house.
They built houses like the ones they had in Africa, designed to make the heat bearable.
They knew exactly what they were doing when they raised this house up, because that's where it's a perfect place for getting the wind coming up from the bluff on the Mississippi River bank.
European settlers pretty quickly began to copy them. Magnolia Mound in Baton Rouge was built in 1792.
And you describe this as an extension of the living room?
It is a living room. It's the summer living room as opposed to the living room that's inside the house, which is the winter living room.
Drayton Hall was begun in 1738, and we think it was completed in 1742.
In terms of porch evolution, Drayton Hall near Charleston, South Carolina, was like the dawn of creation. George McDaniel is director of Drayton Hall.
Now, one of the distinctive features about Drayton Hall is this portico, this 2-story portico. We think that it's one of the first of its kind in America. We don't know of earlier examples.
The house is based on the drawings of Italian Renaissance architect Andrea Palladio. One of the Drayton's neighbors had a rare English edition of Palladio's designs.
And it could well be that John Drayton used a book like this, or this very book, because this would have been here in Charleston at this time.
Eventually, at this house, Magnolia Gardens, the Draytons figured out what a real porch could be like.
It's traditionally been a site of entertainment.
Now, Taylor Drayton Nelson entertains tourists with stories of its illustrious past. The house is still in his family, but open to the public.
My great-grandmother used to entertain people such as George Gershwin and Edna St. Vincent Millay. Vladimir Nabokov came to Magnolia, and indeed they would sit on the porch and talk over current affairs.
Charlestonians moved their porches around to the sides of their houses, called them piazzas, and like Bert and Helen Pruitt on theirs, past the mint juleps.
A lot of these ladies hadn't dressed properly for the afternoon and guests were coming, so they got up and ran and the chairs were rocking.
There was piazza etiquette, as Charleston ladies like Liz Young and Janie Thornhill well knew.
So ladies in dresses and stockings and men in suits on the piazza.
Oh, yeah. And on your drinks? Light drinks in the evening? Supper on the piazza? To catch the prevailing breeze.
But no self-respecting piazza is without one of these Charleston oddities, a joggling board.
Now, this leads to courting.
A boy and his girlfriend would sit there and they would joggle, and one would be on one end and one would be on the other end, and they'd get closer and
eventually
closer.
get closer and closer.
And so in your mind, houses are supposed to have porches with swings?
That's what I'm accustomed to.
Charleston poet Hermine Stanyard recalls watching the world go by below the piazza at her grandfather's as a child.
The fish people who came by with the fish and the shrimp, and they always came by singing about it, you know. Shrimpy roll, roll, you know, got your porgies, whatever.
She also remembers courting.
See, the swing was there, so you and your boyfriend can sit in the swing on the porch and talk. That was nice.
Ann Rivers Siddons remembers a porch swing.
I was allowed, I couldn't sit out in the car with a date, but I could sit on the porch. And somehow they always knew when to click the lights and to tell me that's enough, go home. And I never could figure it out. And Mother finally said, you could hear a little change in the rhythm of the glider, honey.
Okay, here's a picture of my grandparents on their porch swing. They bought this porch swing when they got married. I think they got married in 1908. And this is the same swing on which my father proposed to my mother.
What amazes Jocelyn Hazelwood Donlin is how much a porch is about your mind and your heart, not just about the structure attached to your house.
A porch is a comfortable, safe place. It's an expression of my identity.
So much so that she wrote a book about porches. But listen to this.
Truthfully, most of the time when friends come over, we go inside. It just seems more comfortable.
Why? Because it's air conditioned. Today there are a lot of porches with no people on them.
Air conditioning was sort of the last nail in the coffin.
But writer Michael Dolan notes that home building statistics confirm porches are experiencing a comeback and have overtaken decks in popularity, which pleases him to no end.
I think of the deck as being sort of the platform shoe or the leisure suit of American architecture.
Just a tad scornful? Well, that's nothing compared to his contempt for what builders slap on houses and try to sell to people as porches.
What I call the porch-like substance, which is a structure built onto the front of a suburban tract mansion that looks like a porch when you drive by at 25 miles an hour, but when you go up and stand on it, turns out to be 6 feet wide and 3 feet deep, and you really can't swing a cat on it, but it looks like a porch.
No, it's the real thing that moves him, especially if it's got a flag on it. The wonder is how the porch, this anomaly of architectural evolution, could end up so very American, a place where we sit and dream and remember who we are.
Lancaster, Pennsylvania isn't where I thought I'd find it. But here in a place where the old so easily meshes with the new, maybe there was no better place to find an old friend's new home.
Good to see you again, my friend.
Good to see you. How are you?
I am good.
We hadn't seen each other in more than a decade, since the unwelcome circumstance that first brought us together. The war in Iraq. It was in Baghdad. on the eve of the U.S. invasion, that I first met Atheer Hameed. He was an Iraqi photographer, a cameraman, well known in Baghdad for his work shooting soap operas and documentaries. CBS News hired him not only for his eye, but for his language and local knowledge. But it turned out Atheer's greatest asset was his courage. When the UN headquarters in Baghdad was attacked in 2003, Atheer was inside. He kept his compassion, his composure, and his camera rolling.
Get over the side of the road! After the blast happened, everything became dark, too dark. Even I can't see my hand. All of the people around me, laying in the floor, some of them dead, some of them injured, some of them crying, some of them screaming. And only me, I am good.
He led people to safety using the light on his camera. But it wasn't just the violence he covered. In his battered Volkswagen Bug, we'd go bouncing around Baghdad to find the touching, too. We found the Baghdad Symphony, getting back to playing music again. We ventured to the Baghdad Zoo,
stormed by looters who took every morsel of food,
where starving animals were fed and watered thanks to the U.S. military.
It was rock and roll.
All the way to the building. All the way.
And we went to a hospital maternity ward to witness the first of a generation not born under the dictatorship of Saddam Hussein.
Nice memories. Nice.
They are.
They are nice. Even they are. It was a tough time, difficult, but when you remember, when you see them, remember that you think you did something.
We did do something.
Yes, we did. We did something, yes, for sure.
He still has that venerable Volkswagen in a garage in Baghdad, although now it's mostly been lost to the dust of the desert. In the months and years that followed, we couldn't drive it anyway. Baghdad's security situation had deteriorated so much, we rarely got outside at all.
I used to have a hope that things will be better.
Do you remember a point when you were covering all this that you thought to yourself, maybe things aren't going to get any better?
I also had this feeling, and I am afraid from that feeling.
For good reason. It wasn't only Westerners in danger. Anyone in the media was a target. Atheer's brother, who worked for a local TV channel in Baghdad, was murdered by one of the many militia groups that had surfaced in the chaos.
It was a big shock for us, and it was a big sign for me. Some people told me, you will be the next, so take care.
They told you you'd be next?
Hey, so take care and leave the country better for you.
And you did?
Yes, that's why I left my country.
It was a difficult decision. But Atheer didn't only have himself to worry about. He had a wife and 2 children. The threats against his family allowed him to gain refugee status from the U.S. government. And 4 years ago, Atheer and his family arrived in the U.S. to face both the promise and the hurdles of immigrant life in America.
So, of all the places, though, why Lancaster?
It's a quiet and peaceful town.
Lancaster was recommended to him by a friend at Iraq TV who had once visited here. It was Atheer's only guidance, and he took it. And now he says he's as proud to be living here as he is proud to be an Iraqi.
So look at the license plate.
Yes, I brought it back from my country.
From Baghdad?
From Baghdad. This word means Pennsylvania, and this word Lancaster.
A little bit of home.
Yes, little bit of a home, yes.
But his wife Arij says the adjustment hasn't been easy.
No, nobody know us, nothing. We start from zero. But we are a strong family.
Strong indeed. But the price of their much-deserved peace meant they couldn't return to Baghdad, not even when Atheer's mother passed away.
I couldn't say goodbye to her because I was here. It made me cry for 3 days. But what should I do?
Atheer also lost his job as a cameraman. There wasn't much of a need for a war photographer in the Pennsylvania countryside. So he took what he could find. His first job was here, on an assembly line at a chicken processing plant. And then a job as a custodian at a public school in Lancaster. His college degree is of little consequence in this job, nor is the fact that the images his camera once captured were seen by millions, history's first draft of a controversial war. His station in life has indeed changed, and that often brings him to tears. That sucks, man. It's gonna get better though. I can't imagine it's not.
This job is respectable, good job, but it's hurt me. But I had to do it because I need to survive, to feed my family, and now I have a big family.
He is grateful beyond measure for all the opportunity, and his reputation for hard work is sterling.
So I still have a hope to find my real life as a cameraman.
You're not giving that up?
No, never.
He knows the sacrifices meant that he's been able to provide for his family. Haneen, his daughter, is a junior in high school. His son Haider is now in the 4th grade. And late last year, Atheer's family grew by 2. His twin girls were born happy, healthy, and American citizens.
When they grow up here, they can vote, and maybe they can be president someday.
Baghdad, though, is never far from their mind. They keep connected as much as they can. And this year, for the first time, the family felt it was safe enough to return to Baghdad for a long overdue visit, for both fun and family. Atheer was finally able to say a proper goodbye to his mother. And return to his neighborhood streets. But as calm as some of Atheer's recent pictures make it look, Baghdad may be as bad or worse than when they left. UN Secretary General called a recent upsurge in attacks there appalling. More than 1,000 people were killed just in the month of May alone. It will always be their hometown, but it's too dangerous to be home any longer. Their flight to America has been difficult and at times disorienting, but it has brought them safety. Upon arriving back in the States from their Baghdad trip, the U.S. Customs officer who greeted them said it all.
He returned me back the passport, and he said a very nice sentence. He said to me, "Welcome home."
Welcome home.
It's very nice from him, and this is the first time I've heard this sentence. Somebody said to me, "Welcome home." So this is my home now.